There's a question that came in, basically asking, why does it always seem like there's an inherent need for there to be one-upmanship in successful couples that are black? So black men and black women, there's an inability for them to be on par, both high earners, both achieving, and making strides together. Why is that so difficult for us when, and I'm not saying that that's inherently true, but that's the question. Is it impossible for two black people to be successful, as the majority, to be successful and achieve and both be on the same level?
I don't think it's impossible. I think we have great examples of that, right? We mentioned Michelle, we mentioned Barack, Jay-Z, Beyonce. I think we have great examples of that. I want to go back before and defend men.
Go for it.
Thank you.
One of the things that I think is not talked about is who is the most highly educated class of people in this country? Black women, right? When it comes to rate, and I guess it has a lot to do with where I sit in finance and money and looking at it. If you look at, well, let's go all the way back to another passion of mine, which is mentoring young men. Everywhere I go in the inner cities to mentor young men, the boys are always behind. They can't read, they can't write. They're behind the girls.
Right.
Then you look at once these young men step out into their society, right? They have to do all the things that we said at the beginning of the conversation, and then let's look at the numbers of young black males that are in prison. Let's look at the number of young black males that are on Wall Street, that are doctors, that are lawyers, that are politicians, right? So I don't think we should be pitted against one another, but and I don't think it's fair to say that one has it harder than the other. But I think one of the things that needs to be understood is it is very, very, very hard to be a black man in this country. It is very hard. It's very hard to be a black woman as well, but I think one of the things that happens is because, and put it this way, look at the imagery of a black man, right? What do we always see as a successful black man in this country? What's championed, right? I was listening to a podcast on the way here, two successful white men, and they were discussing what African-American boys should be looking at as being successful. And the guy, the podcast host, out of his mouth said, well, you know, I love hip hop, but it's clear that, you know, rappers don't save their money and they don't have any economic values. And who are you to speak on those topics? But that's what they see us as opposed to men who are in their same genre that they could have gotten on that podcast and spoken to for perspective. So to come to your question now, I think one of the things that, and we've had this discussion on the second podcast that we did was, I think from my experience, what I hear is, again, you have women who are highly educated, very, very successful, right? Black women are very much more entrepreneurial than black women, way far ahead of raising capital and owning businesses, right? The numbers bear it out. What then happens is we're not keeping up with that pace, right? You graduated twice the rate that we do, right? So, and then you look at the jobs that my father had for 40 years when he couldn't read and write. As a tire man, those jobs have gone away. So without the education, without the ability to step into the marketplace and provide, now you have a situation where, as we've seen in plenty of conversations and now in society, right, you have this cognitive aristocracy of people who you just mentioned, very successful women marrying successful men. Whereas those who were a little below that don't get that opportunity to marry a successful woman anymore because she's marrying a successful man as well. And then it creates a dynamic of a power struggle. Well, I make a lot of money, you make a lot of money. Who's the head of the house? Where before it was the man, right? And the man provided and the woman took care of home. Those days are gone. So I think it's an adjustment period. I just think for folks of color, and I say this all the time when I speak, is as a people, we're coming into our abundance, right? Of being highly educated, of having positions of power, of being entrepreneurs, of being politicians, all these things. So it's new for a very powerful black man to sit across from a very powerful black woman and figure out the dynamic and raise children in a neighborhood of people who probably don't look like them in the school. So there's a lot to be discussed and a lot to deal with when you come to the table with that. And I think I struggle with it personally. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I'm not married, and when you do meet another woman who is successful and powerful, it's this. For the first, you know, however many months you're getting to know each other, So it does, yeah, so for me, I'm speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for anybody else.
I agree with you.
But
I've had the same
But why?
Personality?
I think we need examples of what you mean by.
Their personalities are putting, or you are
No,
uncomfortable
I think,
with.
no, not me being uncomfortable with it. I think it's a situation where I think, what I'm about to say is somewhat controversial, but I think women want that until they actually get it, especially from a man. I think, no, it's the truth.
What? I'm not.
Wait.
I'm keeping it positive. I think black women want a very successful, powerful black man until they get one and understand everything that comes along with it.
So I clean things up for a living, right? So let me clean this up.
Oh, wait. Before you say that,
You got the ring as proof.
before you say that, and to add to his point, circling back before you get into that, Mr. Cleanup Man.
Mr. Cleanup Man.
One of the highest growing suicide rates in the country is in African American men, right? And so to his point, there is a gap. Women are communal in terms of dealing with their traumas, right? Men are in silos.
Well, you guys are emotionally resilient, so.
Huh?
I don't think black men are emotionally resilient.
Right. So men deal with stuff in silos, right? So it's a whole different. Right.
You just gonna gloss right over that?
She said we're not emotionally resilient.
Yeah.
A lot of men are not.
Y'all are not emotionally resilient.
You agree with that?
It's
As
not a
whole,
biological-
black men aren't
No.
emotionally resilient?
Resilient. Hold up. Let me say this. No, the reason why I agree with her statement to a degree is because I work with men for a living. Like I work with men. There are men who are.
But are you?
Of course I'm emotionally resilient.
Are you?
I am.
Are you?
And do we think that
Are
the
you?
norm is in the room? We think that the universal norm is in this room right now,
I
represented?
absolutely do. I think the
That's not
universal
true.
norm is in
You
this
just
room.
talked about
If that's the case, then they wouldn't have died suicide.
What does that mean, though?
I've
tried to commit suicide.
It's a
What
lot
does
of
that
trauma.
mean?
It's a lot of trauma.
I think that's actually part of it. I think that's actually
How is-
part of it, of addressing that. What are you describing as emotional resilience? Like, I think it's part of addressing those issues that you have and bringing them forward and being able to deal with it. But I think you had a problem with me saying that this wasn't everybody, but you also made a broad stroke and said black men aren't emotionally resilient. I don't think it's all black men.
I don't think.
Some.
I think that men, as a collective, if we had to do the majority,
'Cause
are not emotionally resilient, and I stand by that.
I
It takes,
agree with
and we
that
can
too.
agree to disagree. It's
Yeah,
fine.
absolutely. Yeah, no,
But
absolutely.
I think,
I know it to be true.
The only reason I disagree, going back to your point, is because, yes, and you mentioned this, the black women are home, right? Or back in the day, because they're not home anymore. The
Black women always had to work.
No.
Black
wait.
women have always had to work. We had our housewives, but black women.
Hold on. Let me make a clear point.
Let him finish.
All right, I clean my own thing. I clean up things for a living.
I was only
Hold on.
Let him finish. That's the point I
I was only repeating what she said. That wasn't my words. She said those words. I was repeating that. Okay. So, the reason why I think I can't agree that black men are not emotionally resilient is because if you look at the history, right, of how we were able to get the certain freedoms that we have today, right, it took some very resilient black men, right, on a whole, I'm talking about on a whole, right, to be able to put themselves last, right, in order for us to be where we are today. And let me just make this last point. And talking about resiliency and the things that black men, not going back to what you said, like tit for tat, but there's no way we can say that. And I understand where you're coming from, but there's no way I can sit here and say that black men are not.
So here's the thing. I don't want you to confuse emotional suppression with emotional resilience.